Okay, welcome back to another video, and this is something new. I haven't really been making that many kind of talky videos recently, maybe over the last 6 months to a year. So what I'm thinking of doing is really trying to poach an idea and doing like a monthly update, just to keep something kind of regular, because there's a few things that I've been up to and it'd be nice just to be able to kind of report progress. Sounds a bit official. Yeah, so what I'll do, I'll start with what I've been playing over the last month. So what I usually do is the 52 game challenge and kind of post the end screens of games I've been playing. But there are some new games that I do play, and I've been playing a few RPGs recently, and it's nice just to be able to play a big dumb shooter. So the game that I've played first this month was Syndicate. So this is, you'll recognise the name, was an Amiga game originally. It came out on the Mega Drive and the SNES and Jaguar and a whole bunch of other formats. And actually both these games were considered maybe a bit of a letdown in some ways. This got fairly good reviews, but it was seen as a missed opportunity. It's just a shooter with some hacking elements. And I like this because I like cyberpunk as a genre. The William Gibson Neuromancer going up to a lot more recent stuff, and there isn't really a lot of it because I think the future of then is now behind us. So steampunk and things like that have come around. It doesn't interest me as much. So yeah, anything cyberpunk gets my interest. Yeah, it's a good game. It's a good game. I think the light bloom and some of the graphics effects are turned up way too high, and that was a criticism, but that's the point of it. It's meant to look garish and nasty because that's what the environment's meant to be. And I think if you're in on it, it makes a lot of sense. If you're not into the genre, it could look a bit silly. So I think if you can get this cheap, I mean, you can probably get this for under £5 now. It's worth getting. I think I got some supermarket on a bargain bin. So the other one, and this is a bit more controversial, and this has been in the news recently, is Aliens Colonial Marines. And this is now selling, that's my phone updating, this is now selling for $2.99, I think in it's either HMV or Game. And it's worth it. It's worth more than that. I didn't play this game when it first came out, so it's been out a couple of years now, so I've got the benefit of playing the patched version. And you can tell that the graphics aren't that great, and they've put in a load of post-processing effects and extra lighting and things like that. But it does aid to the atmosphere, and I enjoyed the game. It's not very long. I think there's about 8 missions in it, and the game starts off in the Sulaco and familiar things from the films, and you end up on LV-426 for the rest of the game. It's not really giving too much away. And you're on Hadley's Hope, which is the colony, and it tries to copy the film, and I think that's the least interesting part of the game. It's when you start to explore other areas that really are new, where the developers have just tried to do their own thing. Those areas are much more interesting. I thought they were more entertaining parts of the game. Yeah, I think, if you played it and you don't like it, then fair enough. But I would seriously consider giving this a try if you like Aliens. The story's meant to be canon, so there are a few surprises in it that kind of make you scratch your head. But there is a mission pack which I've downloaded the other day from the PlayStation Network, and this is meant to be better because there's a whole history about the game being made and subcontracted out, and it not running on most PCs or consoles, and it being redeveloped really quickly. But the mission pack's meant to be made by another developer and is a bit more well-rounded. I haven't played it yet, so I'll have to give that a try. But yeah, well recommended, despite not being a great game. So this month, kind of collecting retro-wise, I've been focusing on Super Famicom. So I've got a box of import Super Famicom games from various sources, and they are difficult to do videos of because a lot of these games, and I've said this on videos, I'm looking for hidden gems. So games that are quirky and maybe have some Japanese text in them, but not too much. And a lot of these games you can get really cheap on eBay, you know, even from the UK. The games just, I don't know, don't seem to carry much value. I think if they first party Nintendo games, they do, because, you know, if you get Mario World or Yoshi's Island or Donkey Kong, the games are what they are. But some of the quirky games, people don't know about them, particularly the Japanese strategy games like the Gundam and that kind of game, and Lunar Strike and what's the other one, Earthlight, the prequel. They're really good games, and I don't think, you know, most people really bother with them. So the problem there is a lot of these games I've never played, and it's very difficult to do gameplay. So what I'm going to do is just take a few of them as a batch and introduce the game and just say what my first impressions of the game are, and maybe that'll inspire you to, you know, look out for those games yourself, or decide, no, I don't really like them. Some are good, some are bad. I did Gun Force a few weeks ago, and it's not considered a great game, and yeah, there are bits I like and some bits that are really bad. You can see why it didn't come out in the UK, but you know, it was entertaining for a little bit. So the other machine I'm focusing on now for collecting on is the Master System. It's a machine I go back to once every year or so, maybe. I'm just looking at the games down there. I haven't got that many for it. It's mainly the Sonic games and the Disney games, but there've been a few more that I've seen recently just on auctions, you know, from a case of getting someone that's selling a whole set of Master System games and just buying a few at a time and serving on the postage. So there's 2 lots of games, one's a box, so I'll have to do a video on that fairly soon. But some games down there that I won't really kind of spoil the surprise with. But yeah, one of them's, well, at least one of them's a shoot 'em up, so I'm looking forward to doing some videos on those. What else? Dreamcast development. Yeah, it's been a few months since I've really worked on it, and it was last week before, I did the video on what I'd recently been doing with the engine, which was rewriting the renderer because it was really inefficient in the way that it was dealing with the way levels were constructed, which is a very kind of 2D way. It's like a tile map, like an RPG, but with height on it. And that's okay because you can get some fairly, I won't say complex levels. You can do more than Wolfenstein. You can change the floor height, you can change the ceiling height. But when I made it a lot more crude, then the lighting looks really dodgy because you've got these great big blocks and the light illuminates the entire block. So what I've had to do is take a block and split it into smaller blocks, which is 8 blocks or 8 tiles, and look at the lighting and make it light some blocks in like a high definition mode and some in not a high definition mode, because if you do everything at once the Dreamcast would just panic, and that's okay. I've got it back to 60 frames a second, so anything that's in the distance doesn't get lit very well. Anything close to the camera or close to the light source gets lit in, you know, better quality. So I'm working on an editor at the moment. I've been watching Mark's videos on Minecraft recently, and it's been a while since I played that, and I've been, you know, going back to that last few days and thinking this is a really elegant way of building levels, and I'm thinking, well, can I build my levels for the game like that? You're limited because you can only select tiles and change the height on them and the textures, but you know, it might be a good way to start than doing this in a more manual and kind of laborious way, because I want to build some cool levels and just see what happens from there. But yeah, performance wise it's pretty good. I'm just focusing now on some of the effects like the lighting, doing some like flicker effects and making the sprites a bit more useful and putting some collision detection in, because I've just been way too lazy to do it, because all you've got to do is just take a wall. If the height of the wall is more than a certain height of the player, you hit the wall. If not, you stand on the wall. And I just did it in a lazy way, just to say whatever the tile the player's standing on, he's standing on it. But yeah, I want to get that fixed before I really proceed any further with that, because it doesn't feel like a game at the moment. It feels like just a tech demo, which is what it is. So yeah, what else? things kind of coming up. I'll do the Master System games and just a bit of discussion around that, but I found this, which is Atari World. So I did a magazine review and, well, overview. I really like these kind of videos, and there've been quite a few people doing them, well, maybe about 5 or 6 people on YouTube, just going over old copies of magazines, and it's really interesting just to see what came and went, because I think there's a lot of things that were discussed in magazines that were of the time, and I think either people have forgotten about them or maybe the stories got lost, and you just get the end product. You know, it's just the bones of the history. You don't really get the meat of it, and I like magazines for that. So I did the CVG issue pretty much a year ago, and I found this in the attic, and this is Atari World from September 1995, and bizarrely it's issue number 5, and I'm thinking ST format was out in the late 80s and early 90s, so this must have been a fairly late magazine. I don't think this was the last issue, but I can't see there being that many more after it, because the ST really died off a lot quicker than the Amiga did. I mean, the Amiga magazines, some of them hung around until, you know, the new millennium, which is amazing really, other than newer magazines like Amiga Future, which is really more of an indie thing, but a very good magazine. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to going through this and really just looking at what the Atari was at that point, because the ST wasn't really a games machine, but I think we remember it as a games machine, but by this point there weren't many games coming out for it, so it became more of a PC in a way, and you know, the music and whatnot were the strengths, and the big thing is CD-ROM and a little bit on the Jaguar. So yeah, looking forward to doing a review video on that, and just going through it, spending about half an hour and seeing what was new and upcoming in the Atari world 20 years ago nearly. That's scary. Yeah, so I think I'll end it there. I was going to talk a bit about the new 3DS, and just that I'm surprised if when new games come out for it they don't have like a degraded mode, because I find it really odd that, I might go into this in a little bit, I know Steve Benway did a video a few days ago that really kind of captured the idea, but I don't see why developers would make a version of a game that only came out on a very minor platform for a minor market. And I'm thinking back to the DS and the DSi, because I'm sure there were games on the DSi that had like enhanced mode, and I'm thinking back to Xenoblade, because it's, you know, it's on the Wii, it's a really good game, but it's got a really good draw distance, and I'm thinking, if you took the game and you just reduced the draw distance a bit, would it really affect the game? Probably not. So I know with consoles you can't scale games like PCs because you almost hard code them, but would it be really that difficult just to take a game and degrade it slightly for the 3DS? Not sure, but we'll see. But I just hope Nintendo build that feature in, that developers can make a game that targets both platforms and will perform slightly different on either of them, which is pretty much all I've got to say on that. So wait and see. I'm not sure if I'll get one. I've still got my original one, but the screen's a little bit too small, and I would like a larger machine, you know, with a larger screen. So I don't know, maybe they won't support DS games, and it'll end up being like what always ends up happening with me with Nintendo handhelds. I play the last generation games on the current console. So the DS, I didn't like the screen on it, so I play them on my 3DS, and I ended up playing a lot of Game Boy Advance games on the original DS. So maybe at some point I'll end up with one of these machines and use it to play 3DS games on, because it's got a bigger screen. I'm not sure, depends on how much it costs. Right, I think I'll leave it there. So yeah, it's been good to do a monthly update. I have no idea how long this took, maybe 20 minutes, maybe half an hour. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. So if you've got any questions or comments, then please feel free to post them below. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll put up more videos hopefully in the next week.